What's going on, guys? Jeff here for Mad Hatter's Reef, and today we're going to be taking a look at the benefits of RODI filters for reef tanks. Welcome back to Mad Hatter's Reef. Now, if this is your first time being here, this is where I talk about everything reef tank related. So if you love reef tanks like I do, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell so you can be notified every time that I upload a new video, because we're putting out a new video every single week. Now, in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the benefits of RODI filters when it comes to reef keeping. We're going to be taking a look at why you need a RODI filter and what can happen if you do not use one. We're also going to be taking a look at the components of an RODI filter and how they work. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at my personal RODI filter, and I'm going to be doing some maintenance on it, which is maintenance that you should be doing every 6 months to make sure that it's going to produce the best quality water for your reef tank. Alright guys, so before we jump into today's video, I wanted to tell you about a contest that I'm doing here on the channel, and we're going to be giving away a JBJ Nano Auto Top Off. All you need to do to enter is hit the like button on this video, leave a comment down below, and be a subscriber to Mad Hatter's Reef. And don't forget to hit that bell so you can be in the know when I upload a video, because that's going to give you another chance to enter to win. So comment, like, subscribe, and you may win yourself a JBJ Nano Auto Top Off. So when it comes to successful reef tanks, most people picture healthy fish, beautiful corals, invertebrates, clear water, beautiful looking tank like the one that you see here right now. And that is something that is very possible, but it takes a lot of work and understanding what a reef tank needs to be successful. Now, when folks are getting into the hobby, this is the goal. This is what they want to have for a reef tank. I personally myself don't even have a reef tank that looks this good, but it is a lifelong goal for a reef keeper to have a tank as beautiful as this one. And one of the most basic fundamentals of keeping a successful reef tank is good water quality. People getting into the hobby, there's a lot of expenses. You're throwing money at a lot of different things, and when it comes to water quality, there's a little bit of hesitation when it comes to spending $100, $150, even $200 for a decent RODI filter. But I can definitely tell you with 100% confidence that a RODI filter is probably one of the most important pieces of equipment when it comes to keeping a beautiful reef tank like we were just looking at. Now, not all RODI filters are created equal, and there's a couple different ways that they are referred to. One is how many gallons per day they produce, also how many filtration steps or stages they have built into them. And this rabbit hole can go down pretty far, and we're going to keep it pretty basic and kind of just skim the surface and kind of go over just about everything that a basic hobbyist is going to need to understand to get the best RODI filter for them and their reef tank. Now, the first filter that we're going to take a look at actually doesn't have the DI resin built into it. It's just a simple 3-stage RO filter. So there's 2 canisters at the bottom. They're both pre-filters, and then it goes up into the membrane. Then water is either discharged or it is going to be good quality water. And that is a simple 3-stage RO filter. Next up, we got a 4-stage. So you got 3 canisters at the bottom, 2 being pre-filters. Then on the top, you have that canister that's laying across it. That is the RO membrane, and that goes into the blue cylinder, which is the DI resin. So this is a true RODI filter. And this is the filter that I'm, in most cases, going to suggest to somebody that is getting into the hobby. This is probably the most complete package that you can put together that's going to cover most of your bases as a reef keeper. And lastly, we have a 5-stage RODI filter here. Now, this one is reverse from the other previous models that we took a look at. And that is something that you need to kind of be aware of when you're getting into RODI filters. Is there's quite a standard amongst most of them, but every once in a while you do come across one that is set up a little bit differently. And this one is set up in reverse. It has 2 pre-filters on the left, then 2 DI resins on the right, and the RO membrane going across the top. And most often with these larger stage RODI filters, you're getting much larger membranes. Well, actually, they're not larger, but they have a higher capacity to produce more water. And a lot of these larger ones can produce upwards of 150 gallons plus per day. And the smaller one that we took a look at earlier, the 3-stage RODI filter, actually it was just an RO filter. That one's probably going to produce anywhere from 50 gallons per day. And that was what I started off with. I only had a RO membrane that produced about 50 gallons per day, and it was incredibly painful and slow. And it was just good once I eventually got a upgrade and had a much nicer RODI filter. Now, a booster pump is going to substantially increase the efficiency of your RODI filter, and I couldn't imagine having a RODI filter without one. Essentially what it does is it forces water through the membrane and makes it produce more water faster, and it also increases the efficiency of the RO membrane. And one of the great things about a RODI filter is you don't actually have to go out and buy the best thing today. You actually can kind of piece it together over time. You can buy a booster pump after the fact and install it onto your RO filter and make it much more efficient and produce more water. And there's a number of other things that you can add to your RODI filter. You don't have to go out and buy the biggest and baddest one right off the bat. You can add things over time. You can add more chambers to it. You can add the pump like we already talked about, and you can also add TDS meters, which they are measuring the total dissolved solids in the water, and it's basically going to tell you how pure the water is. With this one, the Auto Aqua, I took a look at these not too long ago. They're incredibly easy to install. All you do is just snip the line, and you have that plug that you just insert, and it's ready to go. It would be beneficial to have one on the entry water side and the product water side so you can see how effective your RODI filter actually is. So now let's kind of get into what exactly the RODI filter is doing. So to the right, you have your source water or your tap water. It's going to enter into the first pre-filter, and the water goes down through the pre-filter. A lot of times that one is like a sediment filter. It's going to take out a lot of the metals or what have you in the water, and then that will pass through that, go back up to the lid, and then go into the second pre-filter, which a lot of times that second pre-filter is like a carbon block, or in some cases folks will use a smaller micron pre-filter to reduce some more of the sediments that potentially are in your source water. From there, if you have a booster pump, it's going to go into your booster pump and then get pushed through the RO membrane, which is laying across the top. Once that water goes into that RO membrane, it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to pass through the membrane, and depending on what size membrane you have, whether it be a 50 gallon per day or 150 gallon per day, it's either going to pass it as wastewater, which at that point the water is no good. You can use it for washing clothes or in your garden. I typically try not to put it down the drain because that, in my opinion, is a waste of water. Or it's going to be water that passes through all the membranes and go into the last stage, which this is a 4-stage RODI filter, from the membrane going into the DI resin stage. And DI resin is a pretty complicated subject. And for the sake of keeping it light, and really I could do a video just on DI resin, but ultimately what it is little beads that contain both positive and negatively charged ions that are going to further polish and remove stuff from the water to create a very ultra pure water for your reef tank, whether it be for water changes or auto top off. This is the most pure water that you can use. Now, why do you need the most pure water that you can use? A lot of what is actually in tap water is some pretty nasty stuff. And if you go on Google and Google contaminants in tap water, you'll have a pretty scary list that will probably make you want to drink bottled water for the rest of your life. There's aluminum, there's ammonia, there's nitrates, there's phosphates, there's a ton of horrible things, viruses, go figure, that can be found in tap water. And your city should be putting out a list of the contaminants that are found in your drinking water on a yearly basis. At least mine does. And if you look at that list, it's going to tell you what exactly is being found in your tap water. You can also do tests and send it into a testing facility and see what's in there. But ultimately, your water that you drink every single day isn't really the best stuff out there. And the use of a RODI filter is going to give your fish, your corals, your invertebrates the best shot at life that they possibly can have. And if I haven't nailed this home enough for you yet, copper is often found in tap water. Lead can even be found in tap water, even chlorine. All these things can be found in tap water, and they are incredibly toxic to fish, corals, and invertebrates, and especially invertebrates. And if you're trying to set up an aquarium, you know, water evaporation is something that we deal with in every single reef tank. And if you're just evaporating water over time and adding tap water, you're adding more and more of these contaminants into this box, because copper doesn't evaporate, lead doesn't evaporate, all these things don't evaporate. Chlorine will dissipate, but it's just going to increase higher and higher levels of it in your reef tank and eventually become incredibly toxic and kill off everything in your tank. That is the importance of a RODI filter. Not only that, silicates are often found in tap water as well, and silicates are one of the #1 contributing factors to red slime. Red slime needs silicates to form, and if your water is rich in silicates, you can guarantee that you're going to have some nasty bouts with red slime. So just think for a second, if you have a auto top off that is throwing tap water into your system, feeding silicates to your aquarium, that's just drip feeding that red slime in your tank and feeding it to continue to keep fighting. You do a water change, you think that's going to fix it, but all you're doing is adding more silicates. If you're dealing with red slime, you need a RODI filter. If you're dealing with algae blooms that you can't figure out and you're using tap water, you're probably adding phosphates to your aquarium. You're probably adding nitrates, even ammonia, into your aquarium that is making that algae outbreak happen. You gotta have a RODI filter. It's going to eliminate a lot of the water qualities that you're going to battle with a reef tank. So for my RODI filter, I have the Pure Tech, and I absolutely love this RODI filter. It's probably one of the best ones that I've ever had in my life. I don't even know if it's still made. I haven't seen one recently available on the market, but it comes with everything that you possibly could need to set up a successful RODI filter, and it is one of the highest producing ratios of wastewater to product water. It's 1-to-1. Not a lot of RODI filters out there have that claim, but that's also probably the reason that it's not available anymore. But for me, it's done very well, and I am very happy with this product, and I'm going to be very sad when I have to replace it. But ultimately, for now, it's been one of the best RODI filters I've ever had. It is a 4-stage RODI filter like we talked about in the beginning of the video. It has 2 pre-filters, the first one being a 5-micron pre-filter, the next one being a carbon block, which I think is also 5 microns, and typically that's what you see with a lot of the pre-filters. The RO membrane is, I believe, 150 gallons per day. I can't really remember specifically. And then it does have a DI resin chamber, which I use color-changing DI resin, so I know when it has expired. This setup has served me very well. Now, there's smaller ones that will work just fine. It's a lot better than just adding tap water, but there's also larger ones, and a lot of the 5 and even 6-stage RO filters that are out there offer the same amount of water filtration. They just have a lot more redundancy built into them, and for most hobbyists, a 4-stage RODI filter is going to be enough for most hobbyists, and it's going to give them the filtration that they, wow, that's awesome. That's not the way to treat your carbon block, by the way. That's definitely going to need to be replaced before I start that up, but the video must go on, so never mind the ripped carbon block. It will be replaced in post, folks. Don't worry about it. But in most cases, 4-stage unit is going to be enough for them, and this one has a couple additional bells and whistles. It does have a booster pump, which the booster pump kicks on after the pre-filters, and it does have a TDS meter built into it. And I don't trust it 100%, but it has never failed me, so I don't know why I feel that way. I just don't trust it. But I still have a hand TDS meter just to make sure that it is accurate, and I do want to install a couple of those Auto Aqua inline TDS meters just to see what I'm putting into the RODI filter and then what's coming out of it, just as a form of redundancy. And lastly, one of the things I absolutely love about this RODI filter is it does have a little bit of a computer built into it, and it does a pre-rinse of the RO membrane, or I think it's referred to as a flushing of the RO membrane prior to operation, and it will kick on every once in a while the unit has been running for so long. And that, in my book, is just absolutely amazing. It's going to extend the life of the RO membrane, and it's also going to drastically improve the overall quality of the product water that is being produced by this unit. So this footage is from when I first got the RODI filter, and actually just luckily kind of stumbled across it when I was putting this video together, and wanted to show you guys kind of the setup process of it. Now, I ended up installing this in the basement because things happen with RODI filters, stuff overfills, and I wanted to put it in a place that it wasn't going to be an end game type scenario if there was some water that hit the floor. And every once in a while, you got to do maintenance. For the most part, the pre-filters should be changed out every 3 to 6 months, and the RO membrane itself should be changed out every year. And ultimately, that's going to be subjective to how often you're actually using the filter. So if you're not using it that much, you're not going to need to change it that often. So it's kind of a guideline, not necessarily the end-all be-all rule for RODI filters. So let's go ahead and jump ahead 6 months later.
6 months later.
So right here we have the RODI system that I have for my home aquarium, and as you can see, the pre-filters right now are definitely in the needs of getting changed out. That's pretty grody. But the one thing that we're going to be talking about right now is the DI resin. So as you use DI resin, this is the color changing DI resin, and if you had a 2-stage DI resin, you'd be even better off than this. But what this does is it removes a lot of the impurities out of the water. It's kind of like the final step. Once it goes through the couple of pre-filters and then the RO membrane itself, then the last stage is to pass through this DI portion, and that is going to definitely make sure that your water has 0 TDS and it captures everything. And as I use the color changing variety, and as it is basically expired or has been used, the color starts to change. And we're kind of like right at that last point right now. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to change this out a little bit earlier. If I had a second stage here, so if there was 2 DI resin chambers, I'd be a little bit better off, and I probably wouldn't be that worried about that. But where I only have 1, we're going to go ahead and disconnect this. I believe I've shut the water off, so it shouldn't be too much of a mess. And then we're going to change out these pre-filters as well. The one thing I like about the PureTech is that it has a flushing mode in it. So it's designed that anytime that it kicks on, or even if it's been running for a long period of time, it's going to flush out that RO membrane, which drastically extends the life of that RO membrane. The one thing though, this is sloppy right here, and that needs to be addressed. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to swap these out, get them changed up, so we can even extend the life of that RO membrane a little bit further. And then we're going to change out this DI resin. I don't believe it's on there too tight, but it's going to be hard to do this one-handed. And there's definitely going to be some water hitting the floor, because there is water in the system. Excuse the wash machine, I got that going right now. So there you have it. We're going to go ahead and take this upstairs, take out that cartridge, and get that DI resin changed up. Alright, so we have removed a canister. Now this is like a fluidized bed, so we're going to take that. We'll end up discarding that water, but we'll make sure that we... Still a lot of water in there. If I can pour that out. If I'll even do it. Doesn't seem like it. So it's designed to come out the bottom. Now there's a little bit of sponge there. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to get a little bag and then just dump this out and kind of give it a rinse. It's going to be next to impossible to get all of this stuff out just because of the nature of it, but there wasn't a whole lot left. We were pretty much on our last leg. We've made quite a mess too, so I'm going to get a bag and we'll dump all of this out. And then we got some Premium Aquatics DI resin. This is the way that it should come shipped to you, vacuum sealed, blocking the light out, because light does have an impact on light, and air can have an impact on DI resin. So we're gonna go ahead, empty this out, get rid of that stuff, give it a rinse, open this container up, pour it in, and then we should be back in business. The idea is to keep this to a minimum. Kind of reminds me of fish eggs a little bit. So that wasn't too bad. We're going to go ahead and give this a rinse. And we'll be right back at it. Go ahead and throw this out. I'm going to give this a rinse as well. This as well, because I don't know what the hell that little deal is. Looks like some culture going on there, so pretty weird. Alright, so we got that taken care of. We got our canister. The one thing that probably would be helpful right now is a funnel. But I don't have a funnel outside of for my calcium. This might be a struggle bus. See what we can do. There you go. You can see all that new, has that blue coloration to it. I believe I bought color changing DI resin. Hopefully that's what I got. We're going to go ahead and try to be as non-messy as we possibly can with all this. Oh my god. It's going to get harder as we go. Oh, that ain't bad. That ain't bad. We don't want to pack it too tight, and there's a little bit left over. The problem with this is I don't have the ability to seal this to save it for the next time. So what I'm going to end up doing is discarding this, because this will be no good by the time I get back to it. So we're going to go ahead and get that sponge in there, cleaning off a little bit of this excess, so we don't want beads everywhere. But I'd say that was fairly successful. And then the next thing that we need to do is get that sponge in there and then screw this back on. Then we're back in business. We're ready to go. We're going to go ahead, empty out this water, then go back down into the basement and hook it back up onto the RO system. Alright, so this is a little bit embarrassing. That filter definitely needs to be changed out. So, and we've changed out the DI resin. Now it's time to take care of these pre-filters. So let's do that now. All right, that's a little better. And we can't forget about the carbon either. All right, that's awesome. So we effectively have changed out all of the filters here on the RO DI system. We got new pre-filters. And we got new DI resin. Now all we need to do is plug it in, get the water going, and see if we have any leaks to make sure that we are operating the way in which we should. Alright, now what I absolutely love about the PureTech is it has a little bit of a countdown. Then that pump is going to kick in. The rest of the water is going to flow into that carbon. Pushing all that air out. And once we got that water level where it needs to be, it's already done its flush thing. We might have to let that run a little bit longer to make sure all that air is out of there. But that pump will kick in and we'll be operational, ready to go. Good deal. So it makes a little bit of noise, but it still works pretty good. We got water pressure. What I absolutely love about this RODI unit is that it has the TDS meter built into it. but I am going to be installing a backup just to make sure that it is accurate. And we got water in all 3 of our chambers. It's pumping out on the other end. I'm going to go ahead and let some of this water run off for a little bit, but we are operational, we are clean, and we are ready to roll. Let's make some water. A RODI filter, in my opinion, is one of the most important pieces of equipment when it comes to keeping a successful reef tank. But I want to know, what do you guys think is the most important piece of equipment when it comes to reef keeping? Leave a comment down below and let me know. That's going to do it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up, and I will see you next week right here with a brand new video.